let's take a deep dive into 𝗪𝗡. They're this crypto project making some serious waves with their goal to like completely change how money works. We've got articles, research, the whole shebang here. And I guess our mission is to figure out if they're actually onto something big or if this is just another, drop in the crypto ocean.
Well, what's really interesting about 𝗪𝗡 is that they're not just creating another cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's more like they're trying to build a whole financial ecosystem,
Oh, right.
one that kind of tackles what they see as the flaws in the current system.
And from what I'm seeing in all this stuff, they really push this community-driven finance idea. But I got to ask, what does that even mean, like, practically?
Right.
Is it just a cool slogan, or is there something more to it?
It's definitely more than just a slogan.
Okay.
𝗪𝗡 is built on this idea that the current financial system is kind of like a black box.
Right.
It shuts a lot of people out. And so their goal is to use blockchain technology to create a system that's transparent, inclusive, and really puts more control in the hands of, the users.
All right, so this transparency thing, I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
The sources mention all these transactions being recorded on a public ledger.
Right.
But how does that actually make things fairer? Like, does it really address those power imbalances you were talking about?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is that by making everything visible on the blockchain, you make it a lot harder for, like, big institutions or even individuals to manipulate the system, to benefit themselves. It's about creating a level playing field where everyone's got access to the same info and they can participate on equal footing.
Okay, I see the potential there, but it also sounds super complicated.
Yeah.
How's 𝗪𝗡 going to make this user-friendly? Let's be real, most people don't know blockchain.
Totally. And that's where their focus on building this whole ecosystem comes in. They're developing things like user-friendly wallets and even a decentralized exchange to try and make it as easy as using, your regular banking app.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's get to the 𝗪𝗡 token now. That seems to be at the heart of this whole thing.
It is.
One source called it the fuel that makes everything run. Can you break that analogy down a bit? What does it mean to fuel the ecosystem?
Okay, so think of the 𝗪𝗡 token as like your membership card to the 𝗪𝗡 world.
Okay.
It's not just some, asset you speculate on.
Right.
It gives you voting rights, access to special features, and even a share of the revenue the ecosystem generates.
Wow.
And the more people use 𝗪𝗡, the more valuable it gets.
Right.
Which then, encourages more development and participation in the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so it's about creating a system that sustains itself where the users are also the ones who benefit.
It's
Cool. But what about specific perks of holding WRRP? I read about exclusive events and early access to new features. Got any examples?
Sure. Imagine being invited to like a conference
Okay.
where you get to network with other 𝗪𝗡 users and the developers. You get insights into what's coming next and even get to help shape the project's direction.
Wow.
Or imagine getting early access to like a new DeFi tool that gives you an edge in the market. Those are just a couple of examples of the perks.
That definitely sounds VIP. But before I get carried away with all that, let's talk tech for a second.
Yeah.
One source said 𝗪𝗡 is built on the Binance Smart Chain. Why that blockchain, and what does it mean for users?
Picking the Binance Smart Chain was a strategic move.
Okay.
It's known for fast transaction speeds and low fees, which are super important when you're creating a system that people are going to use every day, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Imagine trying to buy a coffee with crypto that takes hours to process and has huge fees.
Right, it just wouldn't work. Okay, speed and affordability. Got it. But what about security? Crypto's still pretty new, and it can be volatile. How does 𝗪𝗡 plan to keep people's money safe and the 𝗪𝗡 token stable?
Security is priority number one for any crypto project, and 𝗪𝗡 is no different.
Okay.
They've put all these security measures in place, like smart contract audits, and they're working with top cybersecurity firms.
Oh, wow.
They're also very open about their code and encourage the community to help find bugs and participate in security audits.
That's good to hear. This transparency and community involvement seem to be big themes for 𝗪𝗡. But let's move past just the token itself.
Sure.
These sources talk about a whole 𝗪𝗡 ecosystem. That sounds pretty ambitious.
It is.
What are the key parts of this ecosystem, and how do they all fit together?
So they're aiming to build a really multifaceted system.
Okay.
The 𝗪𝗡 𝗪𝗥, their decentralized exchange, will be a core part of it. It will let users trade different cryptocurrencies directly with each other without needing a central intermediary. Then you have the 𝗪𝗡 wallet. which is a secure and user-friendly way to manage your 20ROP and other digital assets. And they're even talking about developing their own blockchain down the line.
Hold on, their own blockchain. That's a huge move. What's the reasoning there, and what could that mean?
It's definitely a long-term vision. But the idea is to create a blockchain specifically for the WaterDrop ecosystem.
Okay.
They envision this network with even faster transaction speeds, lower fees, and possibly even more control for the community. It's about creating the perfect foundation for a truly decentralized financial system.
Okay, so they're thinking big, building from the ground up. And speaking of making things accessible, one source mentioned a crypto AI trading feature. Can you explain what that is and how it fits in?
Sure, not everyone's got the time or the knowledge to become a crypto trading master.
Right.
The crypto AI trading feature aims to level the playing field a bit.
Okay.
It uses artificial intelligence to provide these smart trading tools for people who might not be super experienced in the crypto markets.
So it's like having your own personal crypto advisor. I'm starting to see the appeal here.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about the bigger picture. We've talked about the token, the ecosystem, all the tech stuff. But how does WaterDrop actually change things? What are the real-world implications of this project if it succeeds?
That's a great question. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into in the next part of Deep Dive. Get ready for some mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about how WaterDrop could actually make a difference in the real world.
Yeah, we've covered a lot about them wanting to shake up decentralized finance.
Right.
But I'm still kind of stuck on the so what? How could their way of doing things really change things for people, for businesses, even for society?
Well, let's imagine for a second a world where financial services aren't only for people who can, use banks.
Okay.
WaterDrop's thinking about a future where anyone, anywhere with an internet connection can join in on this new financial system.
Right.
Think about what that could mean for folks in developing countries who don't have access to even basic banking.
That's a really powerful idea. But can you give me like some real world examples? How would that actually work?
Okay, imagine a small business owner in a remote area finally being able to get a microloan through a decentralized platform.
Okay.
That could let them expand their business, hire more people in their community.
Wow.
Or think about a family sending money to loved ones in another country instantly without big fees.
Right, right.
That gives them more power to support their families.
So it's like breaking down these economic barriers and bringing more people into the financial system all over the world. It sounds really optimistic, but are there any actual examples of these decentralized platforms making that kind of impact already?
Well, it's still early days,
Yeah.
but there are some promising signs.
Okay.
We're seeing platforms that let people lend money to each other in places where banks don't really operate, and projects that focus on giving people the financial tools and knowledge to take control of their money.
Okay.
WaterDrop wants to build on those successes and create something even bigger and more accessible.
That's pretty cool to see how this tech could level the playing field. But I also have to wonder about the risks, Decentralization often comes with worries about security and regulation. How does WaterDrop address those things?
Yeah, you're right. Those are huge things to think about. On the security side, WaterDrop is all about transparency and involving the community. By making their code open source and encouraging these independent audits, they want to build trust and make sure their platform is really solid.
Makes sense.
They also believe in educating users so people know how to protect their money and make smart decisions.
Okay, but what about regulations? Governments are still trying to figure out how to deal with cryptocurrency and this whole decentralized finance thing. Could that cause problems for WaterDrop's vision?
Regulation is definitely a big challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
But WaterDrop's actively talking to regulators and policymakers to push for responsible innovation.
Okay.
They believe that by working together, it's possible to create rules that encourage innovation while also protecting people and keeping the financial system stable.
So they're not trying to just operate outside the rules. They're trying to work within the system and help it evolve. That's good to hear. But I'm also curious, how are they going to stand out in this decentralized finance world that's getting more and more crowded? What makes them different from all the other projects out there?
Their focus is really on building a community and making things accessible. That's what sets them apart.
Okay.
They're not just building a platform, they're trying to start a movement. By making their interfaces easy to use, providing educational resources, and getting the community involved, they're making it easier for people who might have felt left out of the crypto world to join in.
So they're not just focused on the, crypto insiders.
Right.
They're trying to make these new financial tools available to everyone. But how does that translate into real-world value for the WRA token? I mean, besides the voting rights and special access we talked about, how does holding WRP actually help users in this whole ecosystem?
Well, the WRLP token is really baked into everything WaterDrop does. As the platform grows and starts making money from things like transaction fees, part of that profit goes back to the people who hold WROP.
Interesting.
So basically, as the community grows and the ecosystem thrives, the token becomes more valuable.
Right.
That gives users a real reason to participate and contribute.
So it's not just about betting on the price of the token going up, it's about having a stake in a growing system and potentially sharing in its success. That's pretty smart. But what about the long game? Where do they see WaterDrop going in say, the next 5 to 10 years? What's the ultimate goal?
Their ultimate goal is huge.
Okay.
They're thinking about a world where decentralized finance is just the normal way of doing things, where individuals have way more control over their money, and where opportunities are more evenly spread out.
Wow.
They see WaterDrop as a key part of making that happen by building the tools, the infrastructure, and the community needed for this new financial way of life.
It's a really bold vision. But before we get too caught up in all the revolutionary talk, I want to bring it back down to earth for a minute. What are some of the biggest hurdles WaterDrop has to clear to get there? What could potentially trip them up?
One of the biggest challenges is scale.
Okay.
Can their platform handle the huge number of transactions that would come with mainstream adoption? Can their technology keep up with how fast the blockchain world is changing? Those are the questions that will determine if they can actually deliver on their promises.
So it's not just about building a cool platform, it's about making sure it can actually work when lots of people are using it.
Right.
And beyond the technical stuff, are there any things happening outside WaterDrop that could affect their success?
Definitely. The uncertainty around regulation is a big one.
Right.
If governments suddenly change their rules, it could impact the whole crypto industry, including WaterDrop.
Yeah.
It just shows we're still in the early stages of this whole thing, and things are changing all the time.
That's a really important point. Even with the best technology and a super dedicated community, things outside their control can still have a big impact on WaterDrop. It's a constant reminder that there's risk involved.
Exactly, and it shows why it's important to spread your investments around and think long-term. WaterDrop's just one player in a big, complex ecosystem, and their success is tied to how well the whole decentralized finance movement does.
So while it's super interesting to think about what WaterDrop could become, we have to remember that it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Yeah.
But that puzzle is definitely worth exploring further. And that's what we're going to do in the last part of our deep dive. All right, so we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of WaterDrop.
Yeah.
But now I want to zoom out and think big picture, you know?
Okay.
What kind of world could we have if they actually make all this happen?
It's pretty exciting to think about. Imagine like a financial system that's truly global. No matter where you are or how much money you have, you can be a part of it.
That sounds kind of like a utopia. Can you give me a better picture of how that would work in everyday life?
Well, think about getting a loan. Right now, whether you can get one depends on things like your credit score and even where you live.
Yeah.
But in a decentralized system, lending could become more like, people lending directly to each other, with communities pooling their money and setting their own terms.
Interesting.
This could really open things up for entrepreneurs in places where they don't have easy access to traditional financing.
So they could start businesses and help their communities grow.
Exactly. It's not just about individual empowerment. It's about changing the whole financial system around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, and this shift could have a big impact on all sorts of industries.
Okay, like what?
Think about supply chains.
Okay.
With blockchain, we could track products from the very beginning to the end, making sure everything is transparent and accountable.
Right.
This could really change industries like food and fashion, promoting ethical sourcing and letting consumers make more informed choices.
Okay, that's something I can really understand. But I also got to play devil's advocate here for a sec. While all these possibilities are super exciting, they also bring up some concerns.
Of course.
Could a decentralized system accidentally create new kinds of inequality?
Right.
Like, what if only the people who understand all the technical stuff and have resources are the ones who really benefit?
That's a great point, and it shows how important education and accessibility are.
Yeah.
WaterDrop knows this is a challenge, and they're putting a lot of effort into making their system easy to use, and providing educational resources so everyone can participate, even if they're not tech savvy.
So it's not enough to just build the technology. You have to make sure people can understand it and use it. But even if we solve that problem, I still wonder about the potential for, bad actors.
I see what you mean.
Could this kind of system make it easier for illegal activities to happen?
Well, any new technology can be used for good or bad, that's true. But the people who support decentralized finance argue that because everything is so transparent, it actually makes it harder to hide illegal stuff.
Okay.
Think about it. With every transaction recorded on a public ledger, it's way harder to launder money or commit fraud without leaving a trail.
So instead of helping criminals, this kind of system could actually help law enforcement stop financial crimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about how this could impact governments and political systems.
Right.
Decentralized finance could give people more control over their own assets and make them less reliant on big institutions, including governments.
But that could be risky too, right? Could this lead to a financial system that's more chaotic and less stable?
That's a valid concern.
What happens if something goes wrong and there's no one in charge to step in and fix things?
Those are all valid questions, and we don't have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges for this whole decentralized finance movement is figuring out how to create rules and systems that ensure stability and accountability without giving up the idea of autonomy and decentralization.
So it's not about getting rid of all regulations. It's about rethinking them in a way that works with this new system.
Right.
But even if they figure all that out, I'm still curious about how this will affect society as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, if we change how we think about money and value so drastically, how could that change our culture and how we interact with each other?
Those are the kinds of questions that philosophers and sociologists will be thinking about for years to come.
Right.
Could a fairer financial system lead to a more just and caring society? Could more financial freedom make people feel more empowered and responsible? Could a system that prioritizes transparency and working together lead to businesses operating more ethically and sustainably?
Wow.
These are all questions we don't have answers to yet, but they show just how much potential decentralized finance has to change the world we live in.
It's both really exciting and a little scary to think about how big this change could be. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that we're not just talking about some new technology. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we organize ourselves as a society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
𝗪𝗏 is just one project, one experiment in this bigger movement towards a more decentralized future. Whether they'll succeed or not, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
But what they're doing, along with countless other innovators and change makers, is pushing the boundaries of what's possible and making us rethink what the future of finance could be.
It's a future that's still being created, and each of us gets to decide what part we want to play in shaping it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of 𝗪𝗏 and decentralized finance. Until next time, keep exploring.